Lukewarm at early dawn. At the time when the market fills, it's much cooler. By noon it has grown quite cold. At this time, therefore, they water their gardens. As the afternoon advances, the coldness goes off, till, about sunset, the water is once more lukewarm. Still the heat increases, and at midnight it boils furiously. After this time it again begins to cool, and grows less and less hot, till morning comes. This spring is called the fountain of the sun. Next to the Ammonians, at the distance of 10 days' journey along the ridge of sand, there's a second salt hill, like the Ammonian, and a second spring. The country round is inhabited, and the place bears the name of Orgila. Hither it is that the Nasamonians come to gather in the dates. 10 days' journey from Orgila, there is again a salt hill and a spring. Palms of the fruitful kind grow here abundantly, as they do also at the other salt hills. This region is inhabited by a nation called the Garamantians, a very powerful people who cover the salt with mould and then sow their crops. From thence is the shortest road to the Lotophagy, a journey of 30 days. In the Garamantian country are found the oxen, which, as they graze, walk backwards. This they do because their horns curve outwards in front of their heads, so that it's not possible for them when grazing to move forwards, since in that case their horns would become fixed in the ground. Only herein do they differ from other oxen, and further in the thickness and hardness of their hides. The Garamantians have 4-horse chariots, in which they chase the troglodyte Ethiopians, who of all the nations whereof any account has reached our ears, are by far the swiftest of foot. The troglodytes feed on serpents, lizards, and other similar reptiles. Their language is unlike that of any other people. It sounds like the screeching of bats. At the distance of 10 days' journey from the Garamantians, there is again another salt hill and spring of water, around which dwell a people called the Atarantians, who alone of all known nations are destitute of names. The title of Atarantians is borne by the whole race in common, but the men have no particular names of their own. The Atarantians, when the sun rises high in the heaven, curse him and load him with reproaches, because, they say, he burns and wastes both their country and themselves. Once more, at the distance of 10 days' journey, there is a salt hill, a spring, and an inhabited tract. Near the salt is a mountain called Atlas, very taper and round. So lofty, moreover, that the top, it's said, cannot be seen, the clouds never quitting it either summer or winter. The natives call this mountain the Pillar of Heaven, and they themselves take their name from it, being called Atlantes. They are reported not to eat any living thing, and never to have any dreams. As far as the Atlantes, the names of the nations inhabiting the sandy ridge are known to me, but beyond them my knowledge fails. The ridge itself extends as far as the Pillars of Heracles, and even further than these, and throughout the whole distance at the end of every 10 days' journey there is a salt mine, with people dwelling round it, who all of them build their houses with blocks of the salt. No rain falls in these parts of Libya. If it were otherwise, the walls of these houses couldn't stand. The salt quarried is of 2 colours, white and purple. Beyond the ridge, southwards, in the direction of the interior, the country is a desert, with no springs, no beasts, no rain, no wood, and altogether destitute of moisture. Thus, from Egypt as far as Lake Tritonis, Libya is inhabited by wandering tribes, whose drink is milk, and their food the flesh of animals. Cow's flesh, however, none of these tribes ever taste, but abstain from it for the same reason as the Egyptians. Neither do they any of them breed swine. Even at Cyrene, the women think it wrong to eat the flesh of the cow, honouring in this Isis, the Egyptian goddess, whom they worship both with fasts and festivals. The Barcaean women abstain not from cow's flesh only, but also from the flesh of swine. West of Lake Tritonis, the Libyans are no longer wanderers, nor do they practice the same customs as the wandering people, or treat their children in the same way, For the wandering Libyans, many of them at any rate, if not all, concerning which I can't speak with certainty, when their children come to the age of 4 years, burn the veins at the top of their heads with a flock from the fleece of a sheep. Others burn the veins about the temples. This they do to prevent them from being plagued in their afterlives by a flow of rheum from the head, and such they declare is the reason why they are so much more healthy than other men. Certainly the Libyans are the healthiest men that I know, but whether this is what makes them so or not I can't positively say. The healthiest certainly they are. If when the children are being burnt convulsions come on, there's a remedy of which they have made discovery. It is to sprinkle goat's water upon the child, who thus treated is sure to recover. In all this I only repeat what is said by the Libyans. The rites which the wandering Libyans use in sacrificing are the following. They begin with the ear of the victim, which they cut off and throw over their house. This done, they kill the animal by twisting the neck. They sacrifice to the sun and moon, but not to any other god. This worship is common to all the Libyans. The inhabitants of the parts about Lake Tritonis worship in addition Triton, Poseidon, and Athena, the last especially. The dress wherewith Athena's statues are adorned, and her aegis, were derived by the Greeks from the women of Libya. For except that the garments of the Libyan women are of leather, and their fringes made of leathern thongs instead of serpents, in all else the dress of both is exactly alike. The name, too, itself shows that the mode of dressing the palace statues came from Libya. For the Libyan women wear over their dress goatskins, stripped of the hair, fringes at their edges, and coloured with vermilion, and from these goatskins the Greeks get their word aegis, goat harness. I think for my part that the loud cries uttered in our sacred rites came also from thence, for the Libyan women are greatly given to such cries, and utter them very sweetly. Likewise the Greeks learnt from the Libyans to yoke 4 horses to a chariot. All the wandering tribes bury their dead according to the fashion of the Greeks, except the Nasamonians. They bury them sitting, and are right careful when the sick man is at the point of giving up the ghost, to make him sit, and not let him die lying down. The dwellings of these people are made of the stems of the asphodel, and of rushes wattled together. They can be carried from place to place. Such are the customs of the aforementioned tribes. Westward of the river Triton and adjoining upon the Oceans are other Libyans who till the ground and live in houses. These people are named the Maxeans. They let the hair grow long on the right side of their heads and shave it close on the left. They besmear their bodies with red paint, and they say that they are descended from the men of Troy. Their country and the remainder of Libya towards the west is far fuller of wild beasts and of wood than the country of the wandering people. For the eastern side of Libya, where the wanderers dwell, is low and sandy as far as the river Triton, but westward of that the land of the husbandman is very hilly and abounds with forests and wild beasts. For this is the tract in which the huge serpents are found, and the lions, the elephants, the bears, the aspics, and the horned asses. Here too are the dog-faced creatures, and the creatures without heads, whom the Libyans declare to have their eyes in their breasts, and also the wild men and wild women, and many other far less fabulous beasts. Among the wanderers are none of these, but quite other animals, as antelopes, gazelles, buffaloes, and asses, not of the horned sort, but of a kind which doesn't need to drink. Also oryxes, whose horns are used for the curved size of kithons, and whose size is about that of the ox, foxes, hyenas, porcupines, wild rams, dictyes, jackals, panthers, boreas, land crocodiles about 3 cubits in length, very like lizards, ostriches, and little snakes, each with a single horn. All these animals are found here, and likewise those belonging to other countries, except the stag and the wild boar, but neither stag nor wild boar are found in any part of Libya. There are, however, three sorts of mice in these parts. The first are called two-footed, the next zegaries, which is a Libyan word meaning hills, and the third urchins. Weasels also are found in the Sylphium region, much like the Tartessian. So many, therefore, are the animals belonging to the land of the wandering Libyans, insofar at least as my researches have been able to reach. Next to the Maxian Libyans are the Zavetchians, whose wives drive their chariots to battle. On them border the Gizantians, in whose country a vast deal of honey is made by bees, very much more, however, by the skill of men. The people all paint themselves red and eat monkeys, whereof there is inexhaustible store in the hills. Off their coast, as the Carthaginians report, lies an island, by name Chironis, the length of which is 200 furlongs, its breadth not great, and which is soon reached from the mainland. Vines and olive trees cover the whole of it, and there is in the island a lake, from which the young maidens of the country draw up gold dust by dipping into the mud birds' feathers smeared with pitch. If this be true, I know not. I but write what is said. It may be even so, however, since I myself have seen pitch drawn up out of the water from a lake in Zakynthus. At the place I speak of there are a number of lakes, but one is larger than the rest, being 70 feet every way, and 2 fathoms in depth. Here they let down a pole into the water with a bunch of myrtle tied to one end, and when they raise it again, there's pitch sticking to the myrtle, which in smell is like to bitumen, but in all else is better than the pitch of Pieria. This they pour into a trench dug by the lake's side, and when a good deal has thus been got together, they draw it off and put it up in jars. Whatever falls into the lake passes underground, and comes up in the sea, which is no less than 4 furlongs distant. So then what's said of the island off the Libyan coast is not without likelihood. The Carthaginians also relate the following. There's a country in Libya and a nation beyond the Pillars of Heracles, which they are wont to visit, where they no sooner arrive, but forthwith they unlade their wares, and having disposed of them after an orderly fashion along the beach, leave them, and returning aboard their ships, raise a great smoke. The natives, when they see the smoke, come down to the shore, and laying out to view so much gold as they think the worth of the wares, withdraw to a distance. The Carthaginians upon this come ashore and look. If they think the gold enough, they take it and go their way. But if it doesn't seem to them sufficient, they go aboard ship once more and wait patiently. Then the others approach and add to their gold till the Carthaginians are content. Neither party deals unfairly by the other, for they themselves never touch the gold till it comes up to the worth of their goods, nor do the natives ever carry off the goods till the gold is taken away. These be the Libyan tribes whereof I am able to give the names, and most of these cared little then, and indeed care little now, for the king of the Medes. One thing more also I can add concerning this region, namely that so far as our knowledge reaches, 4 nations and no more inhabit it, and 2 of these nations are indigenous, while 2 are not. The 2 indigenous are the Libyans and Ethiopians, who dwell respectively in the north and the south of Libya. The Phoenicians and the Greek are the incomers. It seems to me that Libya is not to compare for goodness of soil with either Asia or Europe, except the Knips region, which is named after the river that waters it. This piece of land is equal to any country in the world for cereal crops, and is in nothing like the rest of Libya. For the soil here is black, and springs of water abound, so that there's nothing to fear from drought, nor do heavy rains, and it rains in that part of Libya, do any harm when they soak the ground. The returns of the harvest come up to the measure which prevails in Babylonia. The soil is likewise good in the country of the Euasperites, for there the land brings forth in the best years 100-fold, but the Knips region yields 300-fold. The country of the Cyrenaeans, which is the highest tract within the part of Libya inhabited by the wandering tribes, has 3 seasons that deserve remark. First, the crops along the sea coast begin to ripen and are ready for the harvest. and the vintage, after they have been gathered in, the crops of the middle tract above the coast region, the hill country as they call it, need harvesting, while about the time when this middle crop is housed, the fruits ripen and are fit for cutting in the highest tract of all, so that the produce of the first tract has been all eaten and drunk by the time that the last harvest comes in, and the harvest time of the Cyrenaeans continues thus for 8 full months. So much concerning these matters. When the Persians sent from Egypt by Ariandes to help Pheretima reached Barca, they laid siege to the town, calling on those within to give up the men who had been guilty of the murder of Arcesilaus. The townspeople, however, as they had one and all taken part in the deed, refused to entertain the proposition. So the Persians beleaguered Barca for 9 months, in the course of which they dug several mines from their own lines to the walls, and likewise made a number of vigorous assaults. But their mines were discovered by a man who was a worker in brass, who went with a brazen shield all round the fortress, and laid it on the ground inside the city. In other places the shield, when he laid it down, was quite dumb, but where the ground was undermined, there the brass of the shield rang. Here, therefore, the Barcaeans countermined, and slew the Persian diggers. Such was the way in which the mines were discovered. As for the assaults, the Barcaeans beat them back. When much time had been consumed, and great numbers had fallen on both sides, nor had the Persians lost fewer than their adversaries, Amasis, the leader of the land army, perceiving that although the Barcaeans would never be conquered by force, they might be overcome by fraud, contrived as follows. One night he dug a wide trench, and laid light planks of wood across the opening, after which he brought mould and placed it upon the planks, taking care to make the place level with the surrounding ground. At dawn of day he summoned the Barcaeans to a parley, and they, gladly hearkening, the terms were at length agreed upon. Oaths were interchanged upon the ground over the hidden trench, and the agreement ran thus: so long as the ground beneath our feet stands firm, the oath shall abide unchanged. The people of Barca agree to pay a fair sum to the king, and the Persians promise to cause no further trouble to the people of Barca. After the oath, the Barcaeans, relying upon its terms, threw open all their gates, went out themselves beyond the walls, and allowed as many of the enemy as chose to enter. Then the Persians broke down their secret bridge, and rushed at speed into the town, their reason for breaking the bridge being that so they might observe what they had sworn, for they had promised the Barcaeans that the oath should continue so long as the ground whereon they stood was firm. When therefore the bridge was once broken down, the oath ceased to hold. Such of the Barcaeans who were most guilty the Persians gave up to Pheretima, who nailed them to crosses all round the walls of the city. She also cut off the breasts of their wives, and fastened them likewise about the walls. The remainder of the people she gave as booty to the Persians, except only the Batiadai, and those who had taken no part in the murder, to whom she handed over the possession of the town. The Persians now set out on their return home, carrying with them the rest of the Barcaeans whom they had made their slaves. On their way they came to Cyrene, and the Cyrenaeans, out of regard for an oracle, let them pass through the town. During the passage, Darius, the commander of the fleet, advised to seize the place, but Amasis, the leader of the land force, would not consent, because, he said, they had only been charged to attack the one Greek city of Barca. When, however, they had passed through the town and were encamped upon the hill of Lycian Job, it repented them that they hadn't seized Cyrene, and they endeavoured to enter it a second time. The Cyrenaeans, however, wouldn't suffer this, whereupon, though no one appeared to offer them battle, yet a panic came upon the Persians, and they ran a distance of full 60 furlongs before they pitched their camp. Here, as they lay, a messenger came to them from Ariandes, ordering them home. Then the Persians besought the men of Cyrene to give them provisions for the way, and these consenting, they set off on their return to Egypt. But the Libyans now beset them, and for the sake of their clothes and harness slew all who dropped behind and straggled during the whole march homewards. The furthest point of Libya reached by this Persian host was the city of Euasperides. The Barcaeans, carried into slavery, were sent from Egypt to the king, and Darius assigned them a village in Bactria for their dwelling place. To this village they gave the name of Barca, and it was to my time an inhabited place in Bactria. Nor did Pheretima herself end her days happily, for on her return to Egypt from Libya, directly after taking vengeance on the people of Barca, she was overtaken by a most horrid death. Her body swarmed with worms, which ate her flesh while she was still alive. Thus do men, by over-harsh punishments, draw down upon themselves the anger of the gods. Such then, and so fierce, was the vengeance which Pheretima, daughter of Battus, took upon the Barcaeans.
This book is continued on Disc 2.